For many seasons, the Bootleg Racing League has come to this circuit. Some of the greatest battles in its history. It's seen back and forth affairs with J.R. Shepherd and James Lowe, comeback efforts, and many more. This track is known in real life for many parts of history, including the Snowball Derby, one of the premier late model stock car races in the country, as well as when it hosted the Grand National Series, now called the Cup Series, back in the 1950s, being home to a victory of the famous Hudson Hornet. Tonight, we'll find out who can drive into victory lane in what could be a crucial race for the championship in the early portions of this season, as we say good evening everyone, and welcome to the virtual Five Flags Speedway for the second race, 2020 Season 4 campaign for the Bootleg Racing League's Grand National Series, presented by the Cruise Shop and Motorsports Drop, here on the Global SimRacing channel. I'm Justin Prince. Alongside the booth tonight is Devin Henry. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. What does it take to drive around this racetrack? Let's take a look at your GSRC lap guide for the best way around this half-mile circuit.
Welcome to Five Flags. This half-mile paved oval opened in 1953. Five Flags Speedway takes its name from its proximity to Pensacola, Florida. Pensacola, Florida is known as the City of Five Flags, which references the fact that it is 5 governments that have ruled the city. Five Flags is one of the fastest short tracks in America, thanks in part to its 15 degrees of banking and the wide turns that give the track a nearly circular configuration. You never have a chance to rest at Five Flags with the speeds that you carry and the close quarters that you always find yourself in. Five Flags is also very bumpy. Managing the bumps is one of the keys to victory here. Turn 1 is tricky. You carry a lot of momentum off of turn 4, and you have to try to roll the car down and get down into the corner. And the fastest way around the track is about 4 inches away from that pit wall. Things happen fast at Five Flags, with most of the lap times averaging around the 16-second mark. Fast track, fast cars, amazing action. All of these are what Five Flags is known for, and just the type of racing that you are going to see today. So stay tuned, buckle in, and enjoy the race.
That was a look at your GSRC lap guide for Five Flags Speedway. Now, Devin, in your opinion, what is it going to be like for these drivers tonight to drive around this circuit?
Well, they might have their heads tilted to the right, and they're going to have a stiff neck because this is a classic half-mile bowl. No matter where you are, we have quite a bit of banking, 15 degrees in the corners, even 9 degrees on the straightaways. And these straightaways have a little bit of length on them, but there ain't much there. You're turning that wheel almost all the way around. You don't really dip below 90 miles per hour. And the amount of speed in banking is so deceiving at a track like Five Flags. You feel like you can really get back on that gas after you're coming out of the corner, but that is the #1 way to get that front end turn the opposite direction. All these drivers have to be careful tonight about getting greedy on exit, trying to make up that speed down those short straightaways.
See how these drivers handle this tonight, as these are different weather conditions for the last time this series came here. Now, before we look at your standings after the first race of the season, let's remind you of the title sponsors for the Bootleg Racing League's Grand National Series. First, the Cruise Shop. They're a team of highly experienced travel agents that have a huge passion for travel. Cruise Shop specializes in cruises, all-inclusive resorts, escorted tours, Disney, family travel, groups, honeymoons, and weddings. They love the opportunity to help you plan your next dream vacation. Call them today at 260-755-6125 or go to thecruiseshopfw.com. This series is also presented by Motorsports Drop. Struggling to keep track of what's happening in all the biggest racing series each week? And the Motorsports Drop is for you. Catch up with last week's big winners, the biggest races of this weekend's calendar, or the biggest stories in the world of racing, with quick news bites on Mondays and Fridays. Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Google's Podcasts, and more. Search Motorsports Drop to find us, or find our full list of providers at linkpr.ee/SimRacing. Motorsports Drop. With that, let's take a look at your driver standings after the first round of the campaign. It was J.R. Shepherd who came away with the race victory. That was after starting in 7th and dominating the second half of that field. However, some of the bigger storylines came up from second on back. Kenny Kibbe, in his Grand National debut for 2020 in his first race in the series at its highest level in a while, rose up to second. Steven Spieth, known for his dirt speed, had one of his best pavement finishes of the year in third spot, while James Lowe and Justin Morton rounded out the top 5. However, there is going to be a caveat we'll talk about tonight. That'll be a major shakeup of those point standings. Speaking of tonight's race, what are the details this evening, Devin, as we get ready for what's expected to be a good one?
Well, as always with the Bootleg Racing League, I always love how these are 100-lap races and you don't get to change your tires. Round number 2 of 11. A lot of these drivers, though, have ran multiple seasons with the Bootleg Racing League Grand National Series. They are used to having to conserve those tires. And tonight, of course, that means a lot. Not wearing out that right rear to help whip you around and understanding what it takes to have speed while being able to conserve. It goes a long way in these short track races. And of course, how we set the grid, the top 8 from the last race get inverted. Everyone else starts where they finished last week. And of course, that depends on how many drivers are here and what everyone needs to know, whether you are in a car or watching along. 1 fast repair. That's all you can get. 1 mulligan.
And don't forget, no drops in the championship. We'll talk about that significance in a moment. As one of the drivers who just finished the top 5 in the SK Modifieds and is working his way on the track in Grand National practice is Jeffrey Hardin. Jeffrey Hardin speaking with us now at the broadcast booth. How are you feeling tonight at that 44?
I feel pretty good. It's a little nervous, and I really like this track, but man, it kills your tires.
Yeah, I've seen in the comments of our broadcast this evening on the YouTube feed, and I quote, Five Flags is such a fun track, but man eats the tires off these ARCA cars. I hope I can balance speed and tire management better than the last time we were here. What were some of those difficulties in that case? Why you felt that was last time, and what have you done to work on it for this time, as you are 16th in practice?
I backed my corners up a little bit, because I mean, last time I was pretty fast about the first 3/4 of the race, and then I had nothing left.
So in turn, how do you feel this race will flow tonight? Much different conditions.
Well, hopefully a lot better, since I'm starting in 3rd instead of towards the back like I did last time, but I expect that some of the faster guys move past me early, and hopefully I can move back up to them later in the race.
Of course, there's also the excitement coming up for next week as well, because it just so happens to be the debut of the Nashville Fairgrounds for this series. I know it's kind of looking ahead, but your thoughts on that, on top of trying to carry momentum from tonight into that race?
Man, I haven't raced it. I've run a few laps there. It seems like a really racy track. I think probably 3 lines you could run, so I mean, it should be pretty fun.
Anything else you'd like to note before we let you get around this racetrack and out of that grass?
No, just like to wish my teammate Joe Segala in 81 good luck tonight. Hopefully we can both finish up front.
Congratulations and good luck tonight.
Thank you.
That's Jeffrey Hardin, starting in the front of the field, as he mentioned. Now, as mentioned as well, different conditions tonight in terms of the weather. Last time it was a bit more of a late evening / nighttime-ish race for this series. Today, it's mostly to partly cloudy skies. 89 degrees the track temp, 82 degrees Fahrenheit is the air temp at the moment. Very windy skies. That's a common thread from last race. It's going to be where it could be a little bit more tricky compared to the last time. And Devin, your thoughts? I believe we may have lost Devin. Apologies on that regard. But here's the one thing to note on that as well. This is also a different circumstance compared to the last time, where it's J.R. Shepherd, your winner from last time, and the man who won every single championship last season for the Bootleg Racing League. He will not be here tonight, Devin. That's going to be huge for the championship, since this year you are not allowed to take drops starting this season.
Exactly. Only 0 drop weeks as opposed to the typical 2 drop weeks that we've seen in the past with the Bootleg Racing League. That means that you need to be consistent every race, and that also means by missing a race, you nearly forfeit the championship. And I think that every driver knows, though, just because J.R. Shepherd is missing a race doesn't take him out of championship contention. He has won championships the race before the championship. So that means that him missing a race, all that does is it gives someone else at least a shot when we reach the final race of the season. It doesn't mean that he is out of this championship. So this is a big night for guys like Bobby Rafferty, who won the street stock race earlier today, won the dirt street stock race last night as well. Kenny Kibbe, if he wants to run for a championship. James Lowe, who has ran so well in the series. Justin Morton as well. This is a big night for them, a chance for them to go out, get a win, and if they can be consistent through the next 9 races, they will be able to fight for a championship. But just because JR is not here tonight does not mean it's anyone's game still. JR will still be the guy to beat the rest of the year.
I mean, last season, his worst finish was 2nd.
Tough to beat that.
Yeah, he actually dropped one of his race wins after his performance then. But you see in the practice charts, very quick times up at the head of the board. Menda, Dean, Kibbe, Holloway, and James Lowe rounding up the top 5. And when we think back to the performance from Lowe last week and the momentum he's trying to carry from the SK Modified race, it could be a crucial one for the drive of the 99 and for some of these other cars.
And I hate talking about how last season, I mean, really through the middle of those 11 races, he just struggled. He's one of only 4 drivers to ever win in this series, not to mention having multiple wins along with that. So last season was not what he wanted in any way, shape, or form, but he ended the season well at Sobo. He came back and performed well last week as well, and so he needs to take this momentum through the season. He wasn't able to do that last season. We know he can be a championship contender. He just has to carry that consistency through all 11 races.
Same can be said for Kenny Kibbe, who is a well-regarded short-track racer across the iRacing service, also a Twitch streamer. He talked about it a little bit where he's raced in the series in the past, but came back to it this season. He's also raced in late models across the iRacing service on a regular basis, the modifieds on a regular basis, and several other different types of cars. How do you feel he's going to be for a second race as Hardin wrecks everyone down the back straight away?
Well, right there is great. Being able to have wreck avoidance, that is phenomenal there for Kenny Kibbe. But you mentioned just how well-versed he is. Earlier this year, I mean, he's been in a couple of really big road races. He was in the Firecracker 200. So he has versatility throughout a number of series, even in the dirt street stocks, a former champion when it comes to bootleg. And just by his competition last week, started 15th because he didn't run last season, drives his way all the way up to 2nd. Now, this is a completely different track than what we had last week at North Wilkesboro, don't get me wrong. But his short track knowledge, I think, will help him. Tonight, he will start no worse than 7th. And so he will start halfway through the pack as opposed to the very back like he did last week. And consistency is something that he is very solid at. But as we always mention, every single week is so important. And tonight is just another one of those nights to make sure that you are in the top 5 or maybe even on the podium.
Let's see how these drivers do tonight with 17 total cars making to the grid. Let's take a look at how they will start for tonight's action. With the inversion, it's Lowell Jewell, the boss man, who will control the field. He was one of the quicker cars in practice as well. His fastest time in practice was a 16.5. Jeffrey Hardin starts in 2nd alongside him in the front row. Row 2 is Justin Morton and James Lowe after some strong performances at North Wilkesboro to start the season, with Kenny Kibbe in 5th. Mike Holloway is in 6th. Joe Sagawa and Bruce Pearson round out your top 8 this evening. Johnny Moore starts in 9th position with Todd Liston rounding out the top 10.
Starting in 11th, Kurt Smith inside of row number 6. Brian Dean will start in 12th. He is always sneaky good, but was forced to disconnect last week. Bobby Rafferty, he also wasn't with us in last week's race, so for both of those drivers, no drop weeks available. They have to get to the front. Jason Mendez starts in 14th. Robbie Robinson, good to see him back starting inside of row 8th. Hey, Tim Shinovsky, a name we don't see a lot nowadays at least. He's starting 16th. And Austin Belke rounds out your 17 car field here at Five Flags Speedway.
Let's look at your starting lineup for tonight, and as mentioned, the 07 in the field this evening driving the Kmart machine from the near tail end. Now, your keys to victory for tonight is we get ready to go racing 100 miles, 100 laps rather, 50 miles.
Do not be greedy. Conserve those rear tires. We always talk about the right front, but I mean, essentially here you have to conserve 3 tires as opposed to just the right front. And also watch out for guys coming from the back. Brian Dean, Bobby Rafferty, Chim Sinoski, they're all extremely fast. You don't want to get caught up and use a fast repair battling with guys in the first 20 laps of the race. You got to be a little bit extra patient when you have some guys coming through the field that are just so dang fast sometimes.
Should be a fun one this evening as Lowell Jewell in control of the field. The manufacturing engineer, along with the media member, will look to launch us well. Pace car is off. Green flag waits. We're underway from Five Flags.
What a jump from Lowell Jewell. It even brings Justin Morton into the second position here. The outside lane did not go, Justin.
Yeah, Hardin kept completely sleeping, so to speak, already shuffled to the back end of the top 5. As Jewell already leads by a couple car lengths. Morton already up to second. Kibbe gained 2 spots off the jump.
Impressive start for many drivers here. James Lowe also in the 4th position. He's battling in the top 5. Boy, in the back right now, you got Brian Dean, Bobby Rafferty, Chim Sinoski in the Hornet's Nest. They're still 2 by 2, almost 3 wide occasionally here in the back of the pack.
You can see that right now is a bit of a push-up there from Kurt Smith, nearly clipping the apron. And the bottom line is normally the preferred line, but as we've talked about, at a track like this, it can take a few laps to complete the pass because the driver on the top can give the squeeze, especially 3 and 4. However, usually that bottom line, if you hit your marks, comes into play like it just did for Kurt Smith and as well for the Kmart car.
Absolutely, and you'll see the 07 here trying to take advantage of that inside lane. And you mentioned earlier, Justin, flipping that apron, much like some of the more modern day NASCARs. When they clip that apron, it just wants to pull that left front straight down into the wall, but that's where you want to be. You want to be as low as possible. Man, how much risk are you willing to take there? Because you can spin around.
Second place now sees Justin Morton trying to hold on to that spot. He still has not matched the pace yet of Lowell Jewell. Still a long race, but Jewell is still the fastest car on the racetrack at the moment, just about.
And the boss man running up front. NASCAR photographer able to lead this pack. Half a second now on Justin Morton. You know that he's hungry, but you also have to be aware some guys conserving their tires here. We saw last season some drivers start up front, start on the pole, and get out to a big lead, but they did not conserve their tires, and they got eaten up about 20, 25 laps into the run.
Yeah, that's the main concern, I think, also as well in my head as well, because guess what? Just as we finished up that point, the pace just went the opposite direction. So Jewell's pace has now started to drop off just as we were talking about.
Yeah, this is a case where guys like J.R. Shepard or Justin Morton, who are up front a lot, they know how to control the pace. Meanwhile, some other guys who aren't always out front, specifically in these ARCA cars, for instance, sometimes you think that you're on the right pace, but you're pushing it too hard, and that's where you blow out that right rear. And Lowell Jewell, you already see running higher on the track. Justin Morton is reeling in this rear bumper.
Bit of a flatter entry as well that time. Could hurt a bit of the tires for Lowell Jewell and the corner exit. Mind you, that live timing and scoring is available today at gsrc.tv. Keep up with where your favorite teams and drivers are for each event. Once again, that's gsrc.tv. As we fall on board for the battle for the race lead. Morton, again, a little bit quicker. Now just waiting for the moment to try and dive to the inside.
On board here with Morton. I love the arc right here. You can really see him start high and low, much lower than where Lowell Jewell is. So Jewell here hugging the white line and pushes way up on X, and Justin Morton reeling on into the inside, battle for the lead.
Can he get there? Not quite yet. Backs it up. Just need a little bit more speed off the corner. Just have to be at least a quarter car closer to really have a realistic chance to make that move. Todd Liston's just scraped the wall, however, at the edge of the top 10. He's now heading the second pack of cars throughout all of this, by the way. Your top 5 covered by just 0.6 of a second.
Yeah, that 5th place car, Mike Holloway, he's sporting some new paint. He's starting to catch up to this group. Justin Morton again diving to the inside, and Lowell Jewell pushing way up. Might have been gained out of the way there, and he might lose all 3 spots.
So Justin Morton now in the race lead after the slide up the corner. Kenny Kibbe now trying to back it up. And it looks like now Jewell almost seems to be getting a bit too tight now. Already losing that right front after only 15 laps as Lowell now tries to go underneath as well.
And this is a tough position to be in. Jewell might fall all the way back into the 5th position. He's really trying to fight right now on the outside. And this is a portion where you have to pick your battles and what part of the corner you want to use up your tires. And right now, Lowell Jewell is playing up a fight. And not too far behind this group is 6th place, Jeffrey Hardin. You don't want to use up too much where all of a sudden Hardin gets to the inside of you and you are just going to use a plethora. Around goes Lowell Jewell.
That's Holloway that also smacks the wall a little bit. No caution. Everyone dodges up them both. So that could have been disastrous, but it was at the very least for Holloway in those new colors. His pink and yellow car is now back to 15th after a hard hit to the wall. Take a look. This is on board. Lowell Jewell.
So Jewell here trying to hold that outside lane. I don't want to say he's pinching, but he is really, really low, and here comes the contact coming into 3.
Right there.
Great save. Yeah, you're able to see Holloway sneak up in that left side mirror. Ooh, Lowell Jewell was even still a little bit loose coming out of 4 there, and that will wear out those rear tires more than anything else.
Holloway, I think I got the worst of it though, because he smacked the outside fence and all of that. Now we lost several positions as Bobby Rafferty is one of your bigger movers. Up 5 positions now, but get by the 19 machine. Should not be. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Justin.
I was about to say your overall biggest mover, Jim Shanowski, who's up 9 positions, and he was the fastest car in the short run.
And that's where I was going with that. Shanowski and Rafferty both started around the same position, right around the 15th spot. And earlier on in this race, Shanowski skyrocketed into the top 10 within about 10 laps, and Rafferty was kind of still stuck back in 12th, 13th position. I'm wondering if Rafferty was being a little bit more patient with his tires than Shanowski was. Wasn't sure if Rafferty maybe didn't have the speed, but he definitely proved me wrong, now up in the 8th position.
So both those cars very quick as Shanowski trying to find a way to carve on by Donnie Moore, who had a strong performance in the SK Modifieds. Ran top 5 all race in that one. There's no move done quite yet by the 07 machine. Again, it's Morton, Kibbe, Lowe, Hardin, Segala at your top 5 at the moment, separated by about 3 seconds.
Taking a look in the bow for second. Kenny Kibbe still holding in there strong, but James Lowe right up on that rear bumper, that 99 machine wanting to move up into the 2nd position. The top 3 all still pretty tight on the track.
And when it comes to a driver, say James Lowe, where he's carrying momentum from winning the modifieds in dominating fashion, 61 to the 100 laps led in that race specifically that went green flag to checker flag, how much, in your opinion, does that help you as a driver knowing, oh, I have some momentum from this win earlier, can I do it again in this type of car?
Oh, it absolutely gives you confidence, especially when you're able to go out and just be consistent. I mean, that's how you win here at short tracks. When you know that you have that ability, there's not much you can take from the SK Modified race into these ARCA Grand National cars, but just knowing that you have that consistency and you know your way around the track, mentally, that kind of puts you up on everyone else in the field just because of that confidence you're suddenly radiating.
Putting some pressure on as well for second. He's a little bit quicker than the car in front still. Kibbe just can't get the positioning quite yet. They've also ran away from Jeffrey Hardin, who has been dropping back a little bit by half a tenth to a tenth a lap. So at this point, if you're low, how do you try and make a pass like this if you want to be able to do it and not let Morton run away?
Well, Kibbe is starting high and then cutting down the corner. So this is exactly what I was going to say. You enter higher and exit lower, trying to get more of a run off the corner. That was exactly what I was going to say. So low here, you can see now starting to enter higher, trying to get more speed on exit down this small straightaway. But still, just be patient. We are only 29 laps in. If a caution comes out, Morton comes right back to you. So don't wear out those tires. There's no one behind you right now. Just run your race and maybe wait for Kenny Kibbe to make even the slightest mistake here can cause an easy change for position.
Just as we start talking about that, Morton just started falling off again. At this point where he's lost 2 tenths. Speaking of drivers falling off, we mentioned the 44 of Hardin dropping off. His teammate Sagala's reeling him in, Donnie Moore's reeling them in, Bobby Rafferty's also coming in quickly.
How about Rafferty? He has moved past Tim Shanoski, even Brian Dean there separating them. Rafferty's trying to make his trek through the field. Segala just trying to hold off Donnie Moore. We see him up in the front, though he usually has some very quiet races. He quietly grabs top 5, so right now just trying to be patient, get around Joe Segala when he can. The second group of cars kind of falling off the pace right now, though, at the top 3, about 2 seconds behind.
Yeah, some massive separation where the leaders had some good short run pace. They're in the 17.9s. That's already 1.4 seconds of fall off in the span of about 30 plus laps already. Back of the field is running the 18 flats to 18 ones at the moment. And remember, we talked to the driver who's leading this group in that blue machine, in Jeffrey Hardin. He mentioned backing up his corners a little bit more. He didn't have a good start at all to this race, but he's starting to get into a bit of a rhythm. He's matching the pace of the leaders, in fact, now, after losing time in bunches before.
Yeah, the 45-year-old did not have a very good start there, backed up the entire outside lane. But he is gaining that rhythm, and that is something that you need to keep pace, is have a little bit of a rhythm. And when you have that rhythm, we can kind of feel the tires starting to fall off. You can adjust way better than if you're kind of fighting the corners differently every single lap. Being able to slowly adapt and race what the car gives you. And right now, Hardin is being extremely patient. He has that gap that you can see off the onboard here, but still, you have the 3 in front of you, you're keeping a pretty decent pace, and you're conserving those tires. That's what you need to do here when we're 37 laps in.
3 laps to go, and he's actually chipped away an extra 10th or so in the past couple laps. He's among the fastest cars on the track. Brian Dean also putting in good lap times, as well as Bobby Rafferty, as they all are starting to match lap times throughout much of the field. But eventually, though, you have to think traffic could come into play, and eventually some of the drivers who pushed a lot early on could fall off. Morton still looking comfortable in the race lead, but we mentioned Shanoski and him moving up a lot of spots. He's falling off a cliff.
Yeah, Shanoski just has seemed to stop in time. He was in the 8th position. He's still stuck right now in 9th. Rafferty, who started more towards the back with him, is all the way up in the 6th position. And you can see Shanoski with a pack of cars behind him, Jason Menda, and what looks like a Kyle Petty throwback to me, standing there right behind him, right on the rear bumper. Shanoski gaining a lot of pressure right now from the cars behind him after a run up through the field.
I recognize the number font for the 45.
Yes, and the red, white, and blue, but the paint scheme is just a little off from anything that I remember from Petty.
He actually put a 5 Flag Speedway logo on the deck lid for that car as well, and added a lot of chrome to it. Nice and shiny.
I like it. So that's when you say it's not a throwback. It's inspired by Kyle Petty.
Or maybe he likes Kyle Petty and likes the font and says, you know what, I want to honor Kyle Petty.
There you go, and I'm always down for something like that.
Still can't get the move quite done yet. Remember, they have to get up to Donnie Moore for a chance to be the pole sitter with the invert for next week's race at the Nashville Fairgrounds, approaching halfway as Menda finally gets to the bottom. He was your quickest car in practice earlier tonight.
Menda, the 25-year firefighter. I don't know if he meant to get off of turn 2 the way he did last lap, where he kind of turned down. No, it definitely was not intentional. He's just loose off of 2 right now, but it gave him the spot there to put his nose in and make that pass. And now Robbie Robinson looking to make a move to the inside, the Air Force veteran taking on the firefighter here.
Completely different directions for how practice went for them. Robinson was among the slowest in the section, and now able to make the move as Menda's right rear tire seems to be giving out on him.
Yeah, this group right here is struggling. Wow. He held on to that one tight. We saw the same thing just a moment ago with Kurt Smith. And how about in the middle of this pack, Mike Holloway? He's just trying his best to keep up with these guys, looking more up towards the front. A battle right now for 5th. Bobby Rafferty in front of Brian Dean and Joe Segala. This pack of 3 has been together for quite a while. Rafferty, though, still picking his way through the pack.
Thing is, though, the pace is falling back off for the 2 teammates in the 81 and the 44. They're now also slipping and sliding. And we talked about trying to make sure you don't wear all the tires, essentially. Guess what? They're all on the loose side, and the track's been getting hotter and hotter as the rubber's been planted down.
Yeah, this is unusual. Often a lot of night races, but now the track temperature all the way up to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and you're essentially losing grip in the right front, so you're having a harder time turning, and you're losing grip in the right rears, not only from wear, but from the track heating up. And these cars become so maniacal and hard to handle, but Rafferty seemed to got some sort of hold on it. Right now, he's reeling in the 4th position.
1.6 seconds of fall off now for a majority of the field. Hardin in the ones, Rafferty the quickest. Speaking of drivers fighting, though, they're having to deal with the traffic for the first time tonight. Among the drivers they're passing, Todd Liston, who scraped the wall and got stuck to it on down the front stretch early on. Austin Belke among the drivers that are next to fall victim to these cars in the next few laps.
Yeah, Liston gets out of the way quickly. These top 3 only separated by about 6 or 7 tenths and about 2 seconds in front of Hardin and the rest of the field. So these guys right now are on a different level as we reach the halfway point. 51 down, 49 to go now in this race. And you have to wait and see how will these cars evolve. Austin Belke, a lap car, starting to come on up. And unfortunately, so is Tim Shanoski's car, who that 07 Kmart machine is taking a wild turn. Actually, he might be on pit road.
Yes, indeed. He has ducked out off the track after dropping to the tail end of the field. May have some problems with that machine as he's put it on the tow truck. Your race leader, though, is still Morton. And so far, he's been looking okay. He had a bit of fall off, remember, at North Wilkesboro. Have to see how this out factors in as Lowe and Kibbe are still within arm's distance of him.
Virginia contractor here, James Lowe riding on board inside the cockpit. He has Kibbe's twitch handle ingrained in his brain by now, staring at that rear bumper for essentially this entire race. But the priority here is that you can still see Justin Morton. Even from this angle, you can see that 9 car kind of peeking out left and right. So as long as you can see that goal, you have the ability to keep pace better. That's how I feel as a race car driver. When I can see what I'm gunning for, it kind of gives you that extra motivation to keep that pace. And these 3 have done a great job controlling those tires throughout this run so far.
Seems they're backing it up a little bit on the intervals, by the way. They're gaining their time on apex. Then Morton's been able to pull it back on the exit still, and some of the laps. Other times when Morton misses that mark and has to let it roll, they've gained back half a tenth. It's almost like a balancing act again as they're closing up a little bit more. Morton had to really let it roll that time for the launch up 4.
And Lowe has just been so patient, and it's so difficult running that closely to the car's bumper in front of you. When you get late in this race, you mentioned, Justin, how they're backing up the corner. Braking and lifting points begin to differ and get closer and closer to driver preference than actually a point where you need to be braking or lifting. And so running this closely, there is no way that if I was in that 99 machine, I would not have turned Kenny Kibbe on accident by now, just because of the changes in how these drivers enter. You see the 99 there enter and just kind of really reel in on that corner, even have speed on exit there or in the center of the corner. It's just how these cars differ on a fixed setup, mind you. This long through a run, it really makes a huge difference when it comes to driver experience and preference.
Brings it right to the driver's skill and adaptability when it comes to racing these types of tracks. 40 laps to go. Morton now taking a little bit of a higher line in all of this. They will potentially reach Austin Belke in the very back of the field pretty soon, as just about everyone's got in a rhythm. These cars have ran away by 3+ seconds from Hardin, Rafferty and company. Then there's another pack of cars about 9 seconds back. That includes Robinson, Menda, Hallway, Smith, and more. So everyone's gone into their own packs this race, which has been one of the cleanest races in the past couple months in BRL competition.
And this has forced everyone to keep the pace of the car in front of you, essentially. I mean, every pack, they're not really gaining or losing cars. Everyone's still kind of huddled together. And you look at the front of this lead pack here, Justin Morton. We've talked about how there have only been 4 drivers to ever win in series history. Obviously, J.R. Shepherd accounts for the overwhelming majority of them, I believe over 3/4 now. But Justin Morton won at Martinsville 2 seasons ago to become just the 3rd driver ever to win in this series. but he has gone winless since that race 2 seasons ago at Martinsville. What it would mean for him to get back to victory lane.
Let's take a look towards that PA pack referring to, by the way, in all of this. And absolutely. The Smenda at 9th spot. Robinson still within arm's reach of said pack, about a half a second ahead of these cars. Hallway, Smith, and Moore also here. Keep in mind, if they can get up to Robinson, this could be the battle for who starts on the pole for Nashville.
Top 8 invert is how we set the field for the next race. And when you go to a track like Nashville, it's going to be the first time that this series races there. Starting up front is going to be extremely helpful. The difference between finishing 8th and 9th in one of these BRL races is the difference between starting 1st and 9th the following week. And a great job here by Mike Holloway to keep up with these guys. I mean, he has had a boatload of trouble, some right side damage. I know that his tires are probably worn out even more than the next guy, but just 2 spots out of starting on the pole for next week's race.
Keep in mind some very big differences on how those tracks drive as we look at Hallway. You mentioned that new paint scheme tonight. He's changed it up a couple times in recent races.
I love that. Keeping it fresh. Still got that Ford on there, but hey, keeping the paint scheme fresh with a sponsor that really helps out the Dirt World and the Outlaws. So back up to the front here. It's still Kibbe and Lowe duking it out. We mentioned the only 4 drivers to win. Lowe is one of those 4. We mentioned his struggles last season, but really starting off this season on a high note, Justin.
But this has always been one of Lowe's better tracks when you think about statistically as Kibbe gets a little loose off the corner in front of him.
Absolutely, and this is part of starting the season when you go to a track like North Wilkesboro, only raced there twice, had a good finish, and then you go to a track like this that he really enjoys and runs well at. And then the 3rd race is at Nashville where, this series hasn't ran there yet altogether. So if he can put together 3 strong races to start off the season at 3 tracks where other drivers will struggle at, that is a huge benefit for this season's points battle.
Taking a look on board, this is from the back end of Kenny Kibbe. I believe we have an error car about to pull off the racetrack. Todd Liston will lose an error lap. He's now down the pit lane. His day may be down to the 87, leaving us with 15 cars running. Now the main thing's going to be here as really everyone's just kept Morton within reach. How's this traffic going to play in? Because it's not simple as, it's just one car. When they reach the traffic, they'll not only have Austin Belkey to deal with, but they'll also have to deal with the pack for 12 of Donnie Moore, Lowell Jewell, who just took 12, and Bruce Pearson, which could really hold these cars up.
Well, you can see right now in the camera shot, I'm so impressed by this group of drivers, how they haven't ran into a pack of lap cars yet, and this is lap number 75. These guys are starting. They'll battle for second now. Lowe's starting to peek to the inside. But to answer your question, Justin, well, I'm impressed that the back of the pack hasn't gone lapped yet. These front 3 despise that, because all that means is that when these tires are at their worst in, say, 10, 15 laps, that's when you're going to catch that entire pack, and that will change the outcome of this race.
Where you'll reach some of them is, again, Kibbe backing it up a little bit, taking Low with them. They're currently about 10, 15 car lengths up the track, by the way, running about near similar times, if not a little bit quicker each lap. They're down to about now 1.8 seconds of fall. That is a massive amount of fall, mind you, for one race.
Yeah, that is tough to adapt to. Being able to keep that car under control, because obviously these guys are backing up the corners a lot just from knowing the differential from the start of the race to now. I want to know the mindset of Justin Morton, because I know that there's 2 different mindsets when you're leading a race, especially for this long on a long green flag run. Number 1 is I'm leading the race and they're not catching me. Number 2 is I'm leading the race, but I can't lose them. They're still right here on my rear bumper. So unless he's intentionally saving something, like we do see happen with J.R. Shepard a lot, it's one of those things where either he's comfortable or this late in the race, you're going to start panicking that you can't lose these guys.
Rafferty has had to pull off the racetrack after he spun it around in the 360 down the front stretch and lost a couple spots, then pulled it off the racetrack. Something might have broke on Rafferty's car.
Wow, that is so disappointing. was looking to get that top 5 spot, and you saw him just kind of idle there on the entrance of pit road there quickly. Man, so disappointing, essentially going to get 2 weeks with almost a goose egg to open up this season after such a successful season just a few weeks ago when that one closed out.
Donnie Moore also pulled off the racetrack at about the same time. However, because Moore got to his pit box and Rafferty had to pull the tow, currently they're on the same lap technically. So that may be an influence for the 26 to think about for the point situation. Still though, 18 to go. It is Morton, Kibbe, Lowe, Hardin, and Dean now your top 5 as a result of that mistake from Rafferty down the front.
Ooh, Morton is getting loose. He's been a little squirrely down the straightaway. Here's an onboard look from James Lowe in 3rd. And you see those first 2 lap cars starting to gain less traction, if you will. Austin Belke and Lowell Jewell are really starting to get reeled in right now. They're going to get caught with about 15 to go. And here comes Lowe now making that move for 2nd finally.
He wants to make the pass to the bottom side. James Lowe looking to take away 2nd. Kibbe gives it to him. 16 laps to go. Is that enough time to try and get the pass done now for the lead?
Lowe has been so patient this race. This is going to come into handy. They will catch these lap cars who are almost too wide now in about 3 laps. Lowe doesn't need to push the issue here. If he gets some help from the lap cars, he's going to be fine on his own. But look at, man, I think that rear end stepped out just a little bit there on exit. These cars are wicked loose right now with the heat and the tire wear. We ran every lap under green, so these tires are just wicked loose right now. And when you come up to lap cars, it's going to change the complexity of how you run your lap.
And they have now also reached the back end of Belke and Jewell. Remember, Jewell started on the pole. He's now one of your slowest cars on track. In the 18.4s, 0.2 of a second slower than these two. That's going to potentially check up somebody on the corner exit because they're going back and forth, as you see.
This is the last thing that you want to see if you are Justin Morton. Kenny Kibbe's fallen off the tail end of these 2 drivers, so it might be a 2-way heavyweight bout for this win here. Lowell Jewell, the first lap car. Obviously, there's just one racing line here, so you just have to hope that Lowell is willing to lose that position there and just get out of the way. He's not going to do it. This is going to be interesting, Justin.
Lowe forced to check up off the corner, coming to 11 laps to go. Morton forces the issue. There goes the left by now for Jewell. And Morton not able to get a good corner exit. Lowe, though, still had to clear the lap car. Couldn't take advantage.
And that's the worst part. If you're side-by-side on entry, you have to check up earlier and run your corner different. If they're on the outside, if you're on corner exit, then you got to check up on exit, lose that straightaway speed. No matter where you catch a lap car, it's bad. They will have to pass at least one more lap car before this is said and done. Man, these guys are loose.
James Lowe now looking for the race lead. Side by side, Morton forced up to the top. Can he stick it on the bottom? Can Morton be able to defend? Down on the bottom. The orange 99 slides up, just can't get clear quite yet.
And got loose. That gives away some of his straightaway speed. Once again, trying to make that move on the inside. Morton just does not have the run on the outside lane. He will force Lowe to stay low, though, but he will clear for the lead here. New leader, the 99, coming to 8 laps to go.
What a pass by James Lowe. He waited patiently behind Kibbe all race and now has the chance to pounce and run. Fastest car on the track last time by outside of Brian Dean. Now, the traffic could play a factor and to be used as a pick here with 7 to go.
And you just hope that Austin Belke sees there's no one behind him. The guy in front of him is a little far away. You're just hoping that he moves aside here and turns 3 and 4. Otherwise, that could change everything. Morton not that far behind still.
See from the back end of Belke, within reach. Big bobble from the lap car. Again, this is 12th position moving up the track with a bit of damage. Giving space for Lowe. Had to stay lower on the corner exit, though, as Morton now has to deal with them in 3 and 4.
That might have been the worst case scenario. He had to exit low, enter low. Morton will close in a little bit, but Morton now getting caught up by that lap car as well. That kind of evens things out. Lowe has clear track almost ahead of him. Actually, he still has Bruce Pearson that could become a factor coming to 4 to go.
Morton lost 2/10 after dealing with the lap traffic. Low about a 10th or so. 4 laps to go now with the flag stand. Still, they have now pulled about 2 seconds on Kenny Kibbe in these closing stages as well.
These two have done such a phenomenal job conserving those tires and being able to have this speed at the end. But James Lowe leading the way. 3 laps to go, a half-second gap. He might have to pass Bruce and Pearson and hope that does not change everything.
Keep in mind, this is all wild. The battle for what could be the pole next week continues to heat up. Jason Mendez now taking that spot from Robinson, who fell off in the past couple laps. The final couple laps of this race shaping out. Couple battles potentially heating up as he gets a bit loose.
Mendez trying to hold off Robinson. These guys running completely different lines right now after all the tire wear and whatnot, but it looks like Mendez has a chance here to hold him off, just has to run consistent laps.
White flags now out on the racetrack. Final lap as James Lowe is now lapping Bruce Pearson. He had the checkup down the front stretch. Now the traffic will help him in 3 and 4. James Lowe, off the final corner, wins the second race of the BRL Grand National Series season at 5 Flags.
What an incredible run. The amount of patience that James Lowe had waiting behind Kenny Kibbe for so many laps. That close to the rear bumper, waiting to make the move on Kibbe and making the move at the perfect time to pass Morton for the lead. And finally, James Lowe is back in Bootleg Racing League Grand National Series victory lane.
A hard-earned victory, played the tire strategy game well, saved his equipment for this moment. The chance to celebrate on the front stretch here at this circuit. As we let him have his moment, go to post-race coverage in just a few moments. You're watching the Global Sim Racing channel, live from the virtual 5 Flags Speedway. You're watching BRL Grand National Series. Welcome back, everyone, to the virtual 5 Flags Speedway for post-race coverage of the BRL Grand National Series. And what was an exciting race? This series presented by The Crew Shop and by Motorsports Drop. Just a Prince alongside Devin Henry as we look at your race results. James Lowe comes away with the victory after a late race pass, saving tires for more than 70 laps behind the man who finished in third. The man who finished in second, however, after leading the majority of the lap, was Justin Morton, before losing the lead at laps to go. Kibbe finished in third, about 2+ seconds behind, with Jeffrey Hardin, a pre-race interview, finishing in fourth. Stellar run for him as Brian Dean finishes behind as well. Joe Sagawa comes home with the top 10 finish in sixth. Mike Holloway in seventh. Jason Menda provisionally is in that pole spot, pending who will appear at Nashville next week. Robbie Robinson just outside the inversion spots in ninth. Kurt Smith rounds out top 10 Devin.
An 11th place finish tonight for Bruce Pearson. Austin Belke brings it home in 12th. Lowell Jewell started out leading laps early, but will have to settle for 13th. Bobby Rafferty was running 6th on lap 77. Got a little greedy, though, on the throttle and loose off of 4. That puts him in 14th for tonight's race. Donnie Moore ends the night in 15th. Liston in 16th. And Tim Chinaski rounds out your 17-car field here at Five Flags Speedway.
It's James Lowe who's back in victory lane. It was a rough season 3 of 2020's iRacing calendar for him. Back in victory lane he goes, though, at a track he's known to be very strong at. James Lowe joins us in the broadcast booth. James, how does it feel to be a winner again in the BRL Grand National Series?
Oh, it feels great. It's been a while, so happy I could, save some tires there at the end and come away with one.
Was going to say, when you were behind Kibbe, it looked like at times you may have had opportunities to try and peak where he was losing a few tenths, then checked you up a little bit, then you guys picked up a few tenths and went back and forth. Was that you tire saving that moment, waiting for that chance to pounce?
Yeah, I was just riding behind Kenny there for, I don't know, 75 laps or whatever it was. And, I was taking a peek every once in a while just because it looked like we were starting to lose a little bit of ground to Justin. So I was hoping that would, help him, catch up a little bit. But I had no intentions of really passing him. I was still back there in save mode. And then he got tight off, or maybe it was a little loose or something, and I was able to get under him. And from there on, it was, I knew we had the car to win the race. We just had to get there.
Speaking of those conditions, a couple cars were getting on the loose side, it seemed. Were you getting loose or anything like that? And if you were, why do you feel that is?
I mean, yeah, there was definitely a couple moments where, you had to clinch up a little bit, but it was just all about throttle control. You couldn't squeeze it too hard, and there's a funky transition off of turn 4 there, and if you get up too high, your car will want to spin out there if you get on the throttle too hard. So I was just trying to concentrate on that and hit the apex of the corners there and, get the drive off instead of wearing out the right front.
Next race goes to one that will be brand new for the Grand National Series, Nashville Fairgrounds. Your thoughts on going to that historic racetrack?
Well, we'll see. I haven't even bought it yet, so I guess I better get on that. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. It's cool that we got another short track we can run at, and yeah, we'll see. I'm sure JR will be back next week, so it'll be tough. But yeah, overall, I think it'll be all right.
Should be a great race overall. Anyone you want to thank for your great race tonight?
Yeah, I thank my team, Balls Out Racing, for all the continued support. Plan B Sales for sticking around with us for so long. Lowell Jewell for putting all this on. It's a great series. Anybody looking to come run in a great series need to come look up the Bootleg Racing League. And you guys for broadcasting, man. Y'all do a great job.
Thank you very much for the time, James.
Appreciate it.
That's James Lowe, your race winner tonight from Five Flags Speedway. But Devin Henry now is the man who came up just short. Justin Morton is standing by with Devin.
Yeah, Justin Morton will have to settle for the second position tonight. Just need a little bit more. Justin, what do you think made the difference tonight there in those closing laps?
I think James sitting behind Kenny all race, being able to conserve his tires really helped him. We talked about after the race, he had about 3 or 4% better right front tire, and that's a pretty big difference in these cars. So he made pretty short work once he got next to me.
Well, a lot of you guys were looking mighty loose there throughout the run. How were you able to sit out there up front? You top 3 just ran away from the field. What made the difference in the case of conserving your guys' tires through that race? and being what almost looked like the least loose cars on the track come to the end of the race.
Yeah, all three of us were pretty much on the same game plan without talking to each other about it. We all just wanted to make sure we saved our tires to get to the end of the race. And, the tires, you want those tires at the end of the race. That is the crucial part of the race for us. So, yeah, just being conservative.
They'll put on a fantastic show. Justin, who do you have to thank for a second place finish here tonight at Five Flags?
Yeah, I'd like to thank my team, Dual Downforce Racing, specifically James and Tommy, who ran with me at Petit Le Mans. Kind of unfortunate end to that race, but it is what it is. Thanks Pixel Dust for the awesome paint, Lowell for Run the League, Cruise Shop for sponsoring us, and Chris Leone for jumping on this season too. It's very appreciated. And thank you guys for broadcasting.
Well, it's been a pleasure. A really fun race tonight. Justin Morton brings it home in second here at Five Flags. Justin, thanks. And now we will give it on over back to Justin. He is caught up with your third place finisher, back-to-back podiums for Kenny Kibbe.
Yes, indeed. And Kenny, how would you describe this race tonight? As looked like you just fell off in the final few laps of this one.
It was a chess match. Man, I wasn't expecting to start up as far as I did, but there's some guys who didn't show up tonight, so I got up into fifth and got into second almost too early, really. And rode behind the guy, Justin, and thought I was in the catbird seat, but then James showed up, and really looking back on it now, I almost wish I would have let James go early on because he was just there. He wasn't pressuring me too much, but it was enough. I think he made me push the issue just that little bit more than I wanted to. And then I finally went for it because I saw James was trying to go, and I just killed my right front and had to drop back.
Yeah, I was going to say, once you realized that, how difficult was it to drive? Because Lowe mentioned in his post-race interview, he used you essentially to help save as he was just riding behind you for those 75 laps.
Yeah, I think looking back on it now, I was probably at the most disadvantage of the three of us. Justin was able to set the pace, and James was able to not have any pressure behind him and just kind of ride. I had to defend and attack at the same time. And, I was trying to run my line, let off early and everything, and I could see at times James was going in just a little bit deeper than me, but I must have been just going in just a hair too hard, and magnify that over, wow, we were probably like that for 80 laps or something, and that's enough, and James was able to save enough rubber till the end.
Your thoughts on the next race on the calendar, a brand new one for the series and new to the service as of the previous month, Nashville.
I haven't run anything in the service on Nashville yet. I think we'll be pretty good, but it's going to be kind of unpredictable. Guess we'll just have to see how the race plays out. I don't know if it'll breed cautions or if we'll have another race like this where we have zero cautions. We're going to have to kind of play it by ear, but I'll just try to save my stuff, keep it clean, and make our way to the front.
Anyone you want to thank for the run tonight?
First, I want to thank another shout out to the Western PA iRacing boys. It was myself, Chris Wolfson, Ben Wolfson, and Matt Janoski. We ran a full field of LMP2 cars, 44 cars, and Petit Le Mans today, and we brought her home 12th. So we're really happy about that. And we weren't the only guys from Bootleg that ran in that either. There was Austin Belkey was another one, and Bobby Rafferty ran. I know I'm forgetting some other. Oh, Justin Morton ran as well. So kudos to those guys for even attempting the race. And then to the cruise shop and you guys at GSRC for your broadcasting, and everybody who rode on board my live stream today. I was streaming for 12 and a half hours, so that was a pretty healthy one.
Are you streaming right now as well?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for the time, and hope your viewers enjoyed this interview as well.
Thanks.
That's Kenny Kibbe coming home third tonight. Thank him, Justin Morton, and James Lowe for taking the time to speak with us during post-race coverage for tonight's BRL's Grand National Series event. Now, Devin, your final thoughts on this one, because it went green flag to checker flag in a race that just flew on by, it seemed, with how quick it went.
Yeah, it is tough to get a race to go wire to wire, especially at a short track like this, but everyone was pretty conservative for the most part. You really didn't see any just bad moves, really. I mean, everyone stayed conservative. They raced very smart, and I don't know. I really enjoyed the product of this race here tonight, just from how calm everyone was. You don't get that here on iRacing very much.
No, and don't indeed, but of course we mentioned the drop week for Shepard. First of all, your biggest performer this week, or the hardest charger for the night, and your thoughts as well for Nashville for next week, where we are likely going to see Shepard back.
Well, I think James Lowe has definitely made himself towards the top of the list when it comes to a championship competitor. Not just having the great finish last week and then the win this week, but just the fact that he has been so consistent and has the ability to win races and championships in this series. I think that as long as he's kind of back, I think that the rest of these drivers should be a little worried about him moving forward in the series. And speaking of hard chargers, I said at the start of this broadcast how Brian Dean gets sneaky good, quiet finishes. Brian Dean started 12th tonight and brought it home in the top 5 and 5th. Always so quiet, it seems like, every single week, and pulls out a top 5 finish here tonight at Five Flags.
And before we wrap things up, here's one thing to chew on. Because of how crazy the first race of the season went, and because of how, of course, Shepard was not here tonight, the points lead is tied. Kibbe and Lower tied with 77 points after the first 2 races. Justin Morton, 75 points, is in third. Hardin and Hallway are the current top 5 after this evening. For Shepard, he'll have to close up a gap of about 37 points between him and his position. As we've seen, that can be possible throughout the campaign. It should be a fun one when we go to Nashville, though, to say the very least, but we'd like to thank you for tuning in for tonight's action here from the virtual Five Flags Speedway. We'd also like to thank the Bootleg Racing League for organizing this exciting series, as well as its sponsors and the crew shop at Motorsports Drop. I'd like to take the time to thank the companies who provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed up on screen now. Additional thanks to Jude Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of our great work. And again, to the great team in Devin and Sean. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. To help support the channel, you can check out our merchandise for sale at gsrc.storeandby.com, or you can check out our merchandise, our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Grant. Don't forget to head over to your YouTube page and hit that big red subscribe button so you don't miss a moment on the Global Sim Racing Channel. As mentioned, the Nashville Fairgrounds are in full focus next week. On October the 10th, the BRL makes its debut at the circuit. See how everything fares out starting at 8:45 p.m. Eastern Time on the Global Sim Racing Channel. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on your screen, so be sure to check those out and mark them down your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.